So if you'd like to pick any lore, there should be a link in the description now to the Discord. Join the Discord. I will ask a question, and first person to get the question right gets to pick lore for the week. And like I said, this week is on Arefu from Fallout 3. Arefu is a small settlement in the Capital Waste in 2277 and only has 4 houses atop a crumbling overpass. Now, this is one that I know I've been to and I know I've done the quest, but I don't have super vivid memory of doing it. So I'm streaming Fallout 3, so I really want to get to there and do it and do the quest. The quest is called Blood Ties, which I'll talk about a little bit later. I really want to do this again because I also just really love the idea of a city, even though it's 9 people, 7 people? I have it in my notes, or it's on the screen somewhere. There's X amount of people there, but it's built on top of this old world crumbling relic that just does not exist in a modern sense. And, that town has a very clear expiration date. I mean, not clear in the sense of, they know, we're going to go down in, 10 years from now. But they know because it's built on a crumbling fixture that it will collapse at some point in time. And I think that's a really, really fun, I want to say, balancing act of civilization, where it's this is safe, nothing is here. They have to deal with certain things, of course, because it is the wastes, but we're high up, so we have they have an advantage. Not to keep bringing up D&D terms, but they have an advantage roll. Due to creatures, raiders, and slavers attacking, most of the people have left Arefu. Now it says on the wiki, and I get all my lore off of fallout.fandom.com, that some of them have actually gone to places like Megaton, and I believe that's actually a bit of a ways away, but they've gone to Megaton, which Lucy West lives there, and the West family lives inside of Arefu, but she lives there now. Because of these attacks and because of how small, of how small of a settlement this is. Because of all the attacks, they have left the south end of the highway open, and it is the only way to approach the town. As of 2277, Arefu has become victim of many attacks from the family, and more on them later. Arefu's 4 houses sit atop a dilapidated section of the remains of the bridge running across the Potomac River. Inside of the town of Arefu, there is some notable loot, such as the bobblehead for repair, which is on the downstairs table inside of Evan King's house. There's also a Nuka-Cola Quantum and a Pugilism Illustrated. An Enclave outpost can be seen after the player character completes the Waters of Life. On the other section of the overpass visible to them, looking out from the highest drop-off point, these soldiers can actually shoot at the player character across the gap, and as well as be shot at themselves. However, the people of Arefu will not attempt to eliminate the outpost themselves. There is loot to be found in the lake under Arefu. If one looks east out onto the lake while standing next to the king's outpost, a dock extending from the south shore with a footlocker and a first aid box on it will be visible. Jump down into the water to avoid damage and swim over to the boat with the front part visible outside of the water. It contains a first aid box. Then swim to the platform, stand on the platform, and jump into the water. Swim to the bottom and out away from the platform before reaching an old car at bottom of lake. Next to the car is a skeleton with 2 cinder blocks tied to his feet. There's a silenced 10mm and an ammunition box laying next to him as well. This is most likely a reference to the gangster-style killing and dumping of a body. Then swim to the east and you'll find a boat at the bottom of the lake with a first aid box and a safe. That's wild. I didn't know that. Upon your first arrival into Arefu, the Lone Wanderer is greeted by a scripted grenade thrown by its sheriff, Evan King. And then he comments on how he nearly blew them up. However, the grenade does not damage the player character's HP. You can discover Arefu and actually avoid the scripted event. That's something I want to know about, because I wonder if I walk under it, if I'll discover Arefu, and then I can just fast travel and it won't happen. If the Lone Wanderer kills anyone in Arefu, everyone else will turn hostile. Unlike other settlements, the people of Arefu will stay hostile indefinitely. That's wild. Some behind the scenes for you. Just above the entrance, where the highway leaves the ground, one can see a damaged traffic sign that reads Exit 150A, Arefu, slash Arefu slash next exit slash miles. It is possible that the sign may have been indicated to read careful, which the C and the L have faded away to display Arefu. A similar town naming technique is used for Novak and Far Harbor. Oh, I forgot about Far Harbor because it's Bar Harbor, but the sign, yeah, that's cool as hell. Alternatively, it is possible that exit 150A really was up for a place called Arefu before the war, which would fit with the pre-war presence of Maserati, station nearby, named after another Romanian location that would fit the vampire theme. We'll get to that in a second. Arefu is a small village in Romania, best known for its proximity to the former castle of Vlad III, the Prince of Wallachia? Cool. Who is also known as Dracula and Vlad the Impaler. I want to talk about some of the people that live inside of Arefu. There's an advertisement for Dyson. Braley Ewers? Brailleewers. A shy person, Braley is warm and compassionate. She is 36 years old and married. She's married to her overprotective husband, who rarely lets her speak to anyone due to his own paranoia, her isolation becoming exacerbated when the family began targeting Arefu for sustenance, which I will get to in a moment, the culmination of which being the murder of the Brahmin at the settlement's lockdown. Ken Ewers. Wow, that's such a weird name. I don't understand the English language. The quote here is, "We're great, just peachy. I love sitting in my house, my thumb up my ass." Ken Ewers is a 40-year-old man and is a bag of nerves that is terrified of the current attacks that have been plaguing Arefu. He masks this by being incredibly short and gruff with strangers and will only impart the smallest tidbits of useless information onto them. At the moment, he cares only about his wife's lives and his wife's delusional mental state. His wife's life and her mental state, which is brought about by a combination of the trouble around Arefu and the poor diet of the packaged food and being confined in their home with Ken for long periods of times. It's Ken Ewers awful. There's apparently like a guy, like a football man that's his last name. That's just not a good name. Evan King. Evan King was born in 2222. He has lived on this island for all of his 55 years. I guess that's what they refer to the bridge as, which is really a neat idea. He watched the settlement shrink from 30 people down to its current population of 5. He is still responsible for the small settlement and very careful whenever a stranger enters his domain. He is quite experienced in combat, having repelled attacks by raider slavers and various other creatures. To maintain Arefu's security, he had the northern bridge span destroyed and feels safer. I think that's another thing I like so much about this is I picture just like that scene from the Book of Eli where they find the cannibals like in the house, like just this guy sitting back with a gun waiting and is just like anxious, like he must be tired all the time, but he's just sitting there waiting and watching and like I will pull the trigger on the first motherfucker who comes up to me. Like that I really like. Just like he throws a grenade at you, he's like, "Oh, my bad," but he's not. Karen, let's talk about Karen Schnezzy, big Schnez on the beat. She was born in 2254 and is she's extroverted yet wise enough to not just speak to anyone. She knows as much about the current situation in Arefu as most of the other residents and constantly finds herself at odds with Evan King, the sheriff, quote unquote sheriff. She likes to wander around outside of her house even at night and does it almost definitely to annoy the mayor. She doesn't believe that living in constant fear is the answer. So Ian West, I brought up Lucy West a little bit before. After the family came to Arefu and his parents were killed, 15-year-old Ian was taken by the leader Vance, who feels a sort of kinship with him. When he was younger, his sister Lucy was always there to talk about his feelings, but when Lucy took off for Megaton, Ian was left alone in Arefu as the settlement's only child, sending him into a downward spiral of depression. Vance took Ian back to the family's home, and Ian now ponders what his life has become and what he is to do next. And I'm going to talk about the family in just a moment, because there is some neat stuff that I do want to talk about. This is Davis West. He's dead. He died. The head of the West family has recently met an ultimate death. His demise is suspicious, and the wounds are not consistent with the usual methods of murder in this godforsaken place. David has 2 known of kin. Lucy, who lives in Megaton, and Ian, who is living in Arefu with the family. Matilda West is the mother. I'm going to just breeze through this one. The mother of Ian and Lucy, and she is also dead. They were settlers in Arefu for over 10 years, and no one in the settlement appears to hold a grudge against them. Matilda was responsible for clearing out the village outhouse, a task now sadly fallen to Ken Ewers. And then there's Alan, Big Al, born in 2255 as a member of the family and lives in the Maserati Metro. One of the most recent additions to the family, 22-year-old Alan, was ambushed by slavers and taken to market in Paradise Falls. He escaped but sustained a potentially mortal wound. He wandered south and collapsed not far from the Maserati Metro station, where Vance discovered him. Clearly, he does not participate in the rituals because he's still learning the ways from Vance. Now, let's go to the family. Now, when Lamp chose this, he even, I believe, I'm not saying this is verbatim, but I believe he said, it's a little late for the spooky season, but why not do something on, like, the vampires? Why not do something on these people that are doing some shit? I just want to read this section real quick off the wiki, the background for Vance and his family, and then I kind of want to see if I can find it. They have a code, a set of laws. I believe it's 5 of them. I want to read that, and then we can kind of get out of lore, I guess. The family is a small commune of cannibals formed by Vance over the years by gathering people like himself, people who all experienced a cannibalistic hunger. Vance intends to help these outcasts survive and find some sense of community by banding together and adopting a strictly vampiric lifestyle as opposed to just cannibalism. Within the family, they are taught how to keep their hunger under control, and their shame, fears, and inhibitions are eliminated. Furthermore, they justify their lifestyles by emphasizing survival above all else. They only kill what they consume, nothing more, nothing less. However, before they join the family, each prospective member is asked to seek solitude and meditate on whether or not they should stay with the family or control their urges by themselves. The family is named for the metaphorical relation to each other by blood, or rather their thirst for it. Vance takes in all that the greater wasteland deems a monster and teaches them to suppress their cravings for human flesh by only partaking of blood. But more importantly, they are normal within the family, tolerated and understood for what they are. The humans of the wasteland brand them as monsters, villains, criminals, animals, and call for their extermination and or reform. But reform would imply that something is wrong with the cannibals. Vance obviously does not agree with this notion and sees his teachings of vampirism as an improvement and a way to transcend their otherwise cannibalistic nature. I wonder, do people actually have this? Like, I always make the joke, if you could legally eat a human, would you try it? And I always say, yeah, not because like I want to eat a people, but like it's the one food that we don't really know what it tastes like, but we kind of know what it tastes like, but like not really. And I don't want to, like, I'm not like, oh man, if I could just eat a person. It's more of just a curiosity of someone who likes to cook and someone who's seen like Cannibal Holocaust and shit and like this. Like there has to be people somewhere that crave human flesh. I'd like to know about it. I'd like to sit down and have actually, I'd love to interview them on here. I think that'd be a really cool thing. Just an episode where we just talk to a cannibal would be really fun. He preaches to the family that they are no different than any other wastelander that has killed in order to put food on their table or protect their territory, and that the family would be insane to ignore their adaptation they have been provided by evolution. However, despite his zeal, I thought that said veal at first. Despite his zeal, Vance knows that they do not truly possess any extraordinary abilities, and the mantle of vampire only serves to hold the family together. In fact, their adaptation is nothing more than a product of their will and sincere meditation that allows them to focus as they drink the life forces out of another being. The ability can be taught to anyone willing to learn. They have recently been raiding Arefu, and the mere mention of the family invokes fear in even the most intrepid of Arefu residents. In their latest raid, they kidnapped Ian West once they discovered he shared some of the same condition as them. Ian was lucky that Vance found him when he did, as Vance covered for Ian's act by masquerading it as a routine family attack. Evan King pleads with the Lone Wanderer to deal with them and give hints to the family home. When a deal can be struck between the family and Arefu, either the family will protect Arefu in exchange for donations of blood packs, or they leave Arefu alone, for which Arefu either donates or sells blood packs to them. Now, this is one that I do remember for that like one time I went through and every time I found a blood pack, I would put it in my my medical cabinet inside the Megaton home, and I would always go back and go, give me money now. And the run I'm doing now on stream, I'm doing that with like pre-war books. I don't know if I'm doing it with blood bags, but I've been doing it with the pre-war books because it's like 100 caps a book. It's insane. And like, I just picked a couple up before I went to the library, and I was like, here's some books. And she's like, here's 600 caps. And I'm like, what the fuck? Now, just gonna cap this off, I want to talk about their laws. They have a strict set of codes, 5 of them, like I said. And then we're done with lore. But let's get into this. Their first law is feast not on the flesh, consume only the blood. This is our strength. We do not eat the flesh of those we kill for food. We only drink of their blood and leave the body intact. The consumption of flesh is filthy and unclean. This action is what caused the humans to treat us like animals. We are not animals. We are the family. Second law. Bear not the child, welcome only the exile. This is our fate. Because we carry the stain of our past in our bodies, we can never let it pass to our offspring, who in turn would carry out the foul actions, beginning the cycle anew. The family must seek the wasteland for others of its kind in order to maintain itself. That is our fate. The third law, feed not for pleasure, partake only to nourish. This is our dignity. We only kill humans when we are hungry or when we must defend ourselves. We never hunt for sport or pleasure. We do not prey on children, for they are not yet tainted by society's views of us. The family will not tolerate murder. Say what you want about people that do some heinous shit, and I like the Legion a lot, but say what you want about people who do some heinous shit. They have a code. The Legion has a code. The family has a code. I like shit like this. The fourth law, seek not the sun's light, embrace only the shadows. This is our refuge. Because we are creatures of the night, we must not set foot in the daylight. We move silently across the ground only under the watchful eye of the moon above. Also, the rising of the sun, we must seek the embrace of the shadows and never again gaze at its brilliance. The family seeks the dark as it is refuge. Before I read the fifth and final law, I remember one of the reasons why I did this before, like on one of my first playthroughs, is I saw a video that was how to get Vance's Lance, I think it's called. I'm going to look it up before this is over. Actually, I'm going to look it up right the fuck now. It's not called Vance's Lance, as much sense as that would make. It's called the Vampire's Edge. It's cool. It's a little stronger. It's a little more durable. It's neat. And now for this final piece of their code. The fifth law is kill not our kindred, slay only the enemy. This is our justice. Above all, no member of the family will ever take the life of another member without the consent of the current leader. Anyone disobeying this action, the most heinous of all crimes, will be exiled from this place forever. We must not let our own inner demons cause us to fight amongst ourselves. We number only in the few, and we cannot risk extinction. If being rude or impolite when first talking to Vance, he will warn the Lone Wanderer about their behavior before he and the other members of the family turn hostile. That's awesome. The password to open Ian's room is Vespertillo, which is a genus in the family of bats. That's fun. That's about it. That's about everything on Arefu, the family, a little bit of the quest, blood ties and whatnot. I mean, I went over it incredibly briefly, but still. That's lore.